on Google Drive storage today, and a lot of it will focus for sure on organization. Presentation's been put together with the idea that maybe somebody's coming in completely fresh, complete novice to Drive. So we are going to walk through very quickly a few things, especially the benefits of using Drive. Some quick access, usually quick access options, sort of the easiest ways to get there. How to add content to Drive, whether it be your own files or potentially something that has come to you from an email. Organizing your Drive for sure. And then we'll also preview tomorrow's presentation dealing with sharing documents, using owner-controlled settings, things of that nature on Drive. And that'll sort of wrap us up today. So really to get started, speaking about some of the benefits of Drive and accessing it, as you can see here, you can access from any machine, any device that has access to an internet connection. You know, whether it be you have the app on your phone or your laptop, anything along those lines. It is definitely very mobile friendly. Peter and I both have Google phones, and obviously as a product of Google, I know I've definitely done quite a bit with a lot of the Google apps, not just Docs and Sheets and Slides, but some of the other really neat apps that are out there on your phone. And while it'll still work on an iPhone or something like that, the interface is really seamless. And then really we'll preview this more so tomorrow and definitely get into it on Friday, but Google File Stream is another option that can be set up on your devices. As you can see, it says can offer another level of access. This will be discussed not only a little bit tomorrow, but definitely in more depth on Friday. As far as Drive is concerned, something to keep in mind is you as the owner of any files in your Drive, you control the access. And by that, what I mainly mean, if we take it in its simplest form, talking about Docs, for example, you can control who can edit. You also can control the timing on how long they have access to edit that document. Same thing in relation to commenting and viewing. Perhaps you have a document that you need your students to have access to, and you literally could set them to only have access for a month or the entire semester. You can literally pick the date depending on your needs, or if you're collaborating on something within your departments. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, we'll touch on that a little bit today, but that's definitely in our presentation tomorrow, looking at owner control of the access. This is what also allows us to be able to use that share button with sensitive information as long as the owner settings are set up appropriately. Obviously, with editing documents, an advantage here is it is in real time. All of the Google Docs, Sheets, Slides save, you know, theoretically minute to minute. There's no save button that you need to hit, and you can also save multiple versions within the same document, which I know sounds sort of funny, but by simply naming the version, going to the version history, you could literally save it by whatever your categorization may be, you know, first draft, second draft, etc. So there's definitely a huge benefit there. Another benefit of it is, as you can see, there's no need to update the link. So if you were to have a Google Slide presentation for something you're putting on Blackboard, all you would need to do is put the link into your Blackboard course, and then you realize 7 slides into it, there are grammar mistakes. All you need to do is change that on the Google Slide. It'll automatically update it. You won't have to deal with the constant upload a file, remove a file, upload now the edited version, and you're doing a lot of cleaning files to your Blackboard versus providing the link, and of course with your owner settings set up appropriately. It's real time. You won't have to worry about doing all that maintenance behind the scenes. Same thing as far as tracking changes and the versions, especially if this is a collaborative thing. One way in which instructors may choose to use something like the Google Suite of products is to set up groups, and then you could track how the groups who contributed what to which sections and so on. The student experience, obviously, they can view online. I like to use the phrase the 21st century learner. The 21st century learner loves their mobile device, as we know, and I've always been a fan of instead of trying to fight them with it, why don't I leverage that? Why don't I get them to use that? And if they want to be on it anyways, it's easier to change my style than it is to change however many students you have. So with it being online, there's no need to download. They're not eating up storage space. There's no delay with the idea of downloading it, having to wait for it to actually get set up, and then they can view it. With it being something directly online, they've just got, for the most part, immediate access. They can choose to download or print if that's part of the requirements. But again, that would be something set up on your end with the owner settings, which we will get into. So, a couple of very basic things, and of course you've already accessed Drive, but two of probably the simplest ways to access Drive would be either through the My Damon portal, and unless you've chosen to get rid of this particular module, the My Drive module is there. You could of course click on it and it would bring up your Drive, which I was attempting to do earlier, simply here. And once I'm signed in with my login and everything, it goes directly to my Drive. Or another, and there are many ways, but another way would also be, once it loads up, through your email, accessing the options button, and of course accessing Drive there. So, well, as I said, there are other ways to access it. Those are probably two most common, maybe the two simplest. Once you are in your Drive, some quick features that may be helpful. One of the most helpful is definitely the search function at the top of your Drive. If you know the name of your document, but you do not know where you stored it, this is where this is extremely helpful. Simply type in either the name of the document, or if you are working with collaborators, the email address of whoever you're collaborating with, and it will bring up anything that they've ever shared with you, unless you deleted it. So the search option definitely is a huge way to find things quickly. You'll notice number 2 there, support, and I'll circle back to this in a moment. I'll demonstrate using my own Drive. Support, a lot of this is related with the Google Health products. The settings, this is where we can set up things like notifications, for example, and I'll demonstrate this in a moment as well. The quick access, number 4, the quick access is your most recent files, or whether they be doc slides that you've accessed, especially if they were just within the last few hours or a couple of days, depending on the last time you were in there. Number 5 alludes to the idea of you can either use list view, like you see here at the bottom, or I'm a fan of the grid view. I like the visuals. It certainly helps me find things. So, a couple of demonstrations with this real quick. With the search, if I want to look for anything that Peter shared with me, very simple. And obviously, there's a whole huge list of things there. He is a sharer. But you'll notice it's not just Google Docs or the presentations. It's also folders, it's forms, it's videos, it's anything that has been shared with me with Peter. The support button, this is your help button. This is your, how can I search for something within Google? I can search the Google information, if you will, in order to find certain things, get training or updates. The settings button, this is where you potentially would get the file stream that we'll talk about later. But if you click on settings, this is also the area where you can take a look at what kind of storage you're using. Now, at Damon, we have unlimited storage, and that's one of the other, real benefits of this, is that the storage, really, we could put so much in there, and then hyperlinks in your Blackboard courses, for example, where you're not really bogging down any other systems, or bogging down, in this case, the processor on your own device. So makes it very helpful. Notifications may be one you want to take a look at, though. And notice I have mine for email checked. It says get all updates about Google Drive items via email. This may be one that you want to check mark when you know that there are certain updates coming down the line. You want to make sure you get those. I'll give an example. The version history is an update that Drive changed maybe about 6 months ago, somewhere in there. They used to call it, to be honest, I don't even remember what it was called anymore. Maybe it was just called title history or collaborator history. It was a simple update, but I certainly got the notification. And of course, if you have any other apps within Drive, like your docs, your forms, etc., you can manage these here as well. Coming to our list view, simply by clicking on it, again, I'm still looking at, because of my search, everything that Peter shared with me. Now it's in a list view versus being in a grid view, which is sort of your thumbnail version. And then finally, just from Drive here, viewing details. Now, in this case, if I select, we'll say this Zoom Cloud Recordings. And the I, right, for details or for information, is letting me know who has access to this. You can see Peter and I here. You can also see that it is a shareable link, and anyone at damon.edu with the link can view. So I'm really sort of getting a, what is this folder in particular? What is it all about? Who has access to it? The location, obviously, it says Zoom Recordings. Last time it was modified. We can add a description if needed. But what's also nice about this is you can take a look at activity. So I have my option here with details and my other option with activity. And from activity, we can see, on September 18th, Peter uploaded 19 items. And if I really needed to look at just one of those items, I can certainly click it. It'll take me right to it from there. So there's another option with the information here. Am I moving too fast? I feel like I have to make up time. Okay. Now, as far as on the left-hand side, your menu options once you're in Drive, just in order, we have new. This hopefully is self-explanatory. This is where you can upload folders, upload files, create things right from scratch, whether it be create a doc, create a form, etc. Priority, this is something that's relatively new, at least to me. The idea of creating a workspace. I've actually just started playing with this myself, but what's nice is if you know you have a project and there are multiple documents in this project, and perhaps it's a project that you're working on or collaborating on for 3 months. You can put all these things in, up to 25 Google items into this priority workspace. And then simply by clicking on priority, it will take you to sort of like a container of this workspace. This is extremely helpful if you're trying to juggle multiple projects at the same time. Obviously, My Drive, these are your personal items or things that have been shared that you've added to your own drive. We'll talk about organization later. Shared drives, okay, definitely slightly different from shared with you. In this case, perhaps the department has shared the entire department drive, or you have shared your entire drive with someone else. And then, of course, it'd be whatever's contained within those drives. Share with me, self-explanatory, items, files, folders, etc. Recent is very similar to the quick access, things that you can access earlier today. But when you look at recent, you'll see maybe earlier in the month or earlier in the week, it'll give you sort of tags along those lines. You have a rough time frame when you were working on something, you can use that. Starred, very similar to our My Damon. You may want to star things that are extremely important or you need access to all the time. Be very easy to find. Trash, of course, things that have been removed. With unlimited storage, as we know, you may want to remove things from your drive when they're maybe no good, but I don't know that I would remove them from the trash. Let whatever natural cleanups happen there, just in case you need to recover them at some point. So again, I'm going to come back to my drive and demo a few of these things. I'm going to skip new for now because that's just my next thing in a moment. But with priority, once it loads up, you'll notice I've given myself a workspace that's just labeled as immediate attention. And within this, if I click on View Workspace, I can very quickly add more files to this. This was our G-Strive storage project I'm working on for our QM reviews, our fall workshop schedule, and a presentation Peter wrapped up last night with Blackboard Grade Center. This is most likely something I'll be adding to, and it's immediate attention. I'm probably actually going to rename this to be media attention fall 19. All of our fall 19 projects will be in this workspace for me. It makes it very easy to find it, and I can create another workspace for spring 20. And sort of,
you can have multiple workspaces at the same time.
yes, you can. So over here, just above that, I've got this create button, and I can do that right now and say spring 20. And once I'm in there, now it's giving me options of things to put in. Notice it says 0 of 25. There's nothing I actually need, or I actually have in there at the moment. But simply by choosing where those files are, and this catches up, when we put our spring 19 workshop schedule together, I'll put in all of, for myself, for my organization, I'll put in all the presentations, the schedule, etc. that we're working on. And very simple, or very similarly, excuse me, to My Drive, I can either go in My Drive and find those files, I can go into shared drives if it's something that's been shared with me, or I know the title of it, I can click the search button and search specifically for it and bring it all into this workspace. We're not moving it from where it's currently housed. We're not even copying it. We're just sort of tagging it into this workspace for quick identification and quick usage.
So if I had it in a folder somewhere else, it still remains there.
Correct.
And I can just access it quickly. Okay.
Correct.
And there's only 25 items, so an item or file, so it could be a photograph, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a doc. Okay.
Up to 25.
Okay.
Yep. So, moving on, obviously with our drive, these are all the things that are in My Drive. Some of these are shared, like our Office of Instructional Design, something that is obviously shared between Peter and I. But I can tell by the icons that this particular folder that says Zoom Recordings Demo, that is only in My Drive. It doesn't have that tiny little person next to it. You see that tiny little person in the folder that sort of clues you in that this is something that is shared. Where this is blank, there's no person in there, this lets me know this is something that is only mine. Of course, I've got some other files that are just sort of hanging out here. I mostly operate in this shared folder with Peter, Office of Instructional Design, and all of the things that we're working on. Shared drives, the only drive that's been shared with me is Office of IT. Although that certainly could change. And then as far as shared with me, these are all the various documents, folders, etc. that have been shared with me. And you'll notice, we'll see this again when I get to recent in a moment. We've got our quick access. These are things that probably were accessed this morning or within the last few hours. Earlier this week, earlier this year, it's sort of categorized that way. We see a similar aspect here with today, earlier this week, earlier this year. So they reuse the same idea over and over. I have starred a few items, and in this particular case, the only thing I've really starred is our shared. If for some reason I lose it here, it should be in our starred area. But again, you can do this with docs, you can do this with folders, you can do this with many things, quick access. And if I need to ever recover anything, I put in trash. Very simple to click trash and restore. Right click, restore. Storage really is just a snapshot. There's nothing I can actually click there for me to see how much I've stored. I've got 1 gigabyte that I've used, but it's unlimited storage. So there's a few of the options there. We'll talk quickly about adding content to Drive. That new button that I skipped. This is one of the easier ways. This is not the only way, but this is one of the easier ways to add content to your Drive. You can click new, and then from there, you'll head on down, obviously, the list. You're adding a new folder. You're doing a file upload or a folder upload, creating documents. If I wanted specifically something from Google Forms, I simply would put my cursor over more. It would take me to Google Forms or whatever else is in my list. Back to that settings and managing your apps if there are certain things that are missing from this drop down as you go to add something new, that's where you could add them or remove them when you manage your apps. The slides, docs, etc. are essentially your apps. Of course, you can create blank or create from a template. Right click just in sort of negative space is another way to add things. You get the same options. I can right click, new, Google Docs, etc., etc. And I don't have any files on this computer. On my personal laptop, I do. But by going file upload, once it catches up, help desk on the desktop. No. Well, I won't grab anything, but we'll just do a pretend grabbing if there's nothing. But obviously, here's where you'd find that file from your personal device, and then click open, and it would upload it into your drive. So let's see, what did I want to talk about next? Before I get too far on. Email. So obviously, quite a few things have been shared via email, and you want to get them in your drive, somewhere stored in your drive. There are some options depending on how things have been sent along, or whether it's attachment and so on. But as you'll notice, in your email, this attachment usually is at the bottom. If you click on the drive icon, you've got two icons there. One is for download, and the one with the drive symbol obviously is save to drive. Immediately when you click that, you will get the prompt to organize. And I highly suggest take advantage of that organized prompt at that time so you can put that attachment exactly where you want it, where you need it. So once you click organize, at this point it really is, you'll notice it takes me to my personal drive. It's a matter of finding and putting it in the destination. Depending on your layers of folders that you have, you may end up clicking only one folder, like Office of Instructional Design. And then even though it's a little light here, I'll demonstrate this in a moment. You'll click move here, or I may need to click into that folder and then into another folder and so on and so forth to get it exactly where I want it to be housed. So hopefully I have an email. Sure. We can use this real quick. So Eric Hayes sent along to me some pictures from our phishing awareness campaign. And you'll notice if I hover over the picture, I immediately get this option to save to my drive. I click to that, organize, and I do have a folder for phishing committee. I can click here and just click move, or maybe there are some subfolders I need it in. Click the arrow, and for now, I'm just going to have it live in here. And it even gives you a warning, since this is a shared folder with everybody else on the committee. By moving this item in here, I am sharing it with everybody else. So at this moment, I've now made that picture part of the phishing awareness committee folder. It may already be in there. But that's a quick example of how you can definitely take things from your email and save them to your drive. Today we're talking about storage. Tomorrow we'll be talking about sharing, so we'll do it on the opposite end. How do you, when you craft an email, how do you now take something out of Drive and in your composition of an email, send it along or share it along with somebody? And the final thing, right? The thing you're really here for, organizing your Drive. There are a couple of ways really to go about this. You can, my suggestion would be, first, take a look at the show file location. See where that file in your drive is currently housed, where it's currently living. And again, I'll demo this in a moment. And from there, you can move it to another location, or Now it'll let you know which folder it's living in, and you've got others you need to put there. You know the name of the location. It's as simple as right-click, move to, and move your other files to that location. As my asterisk notation at the bottom says, drag and drop is an option if you already have a destination to put things. Definitely is another way in which to help organize your drive itself. So let's just say, for example, things that are shared with me. And I was using this one earlier. If I right-click while hovering over that particular document, and I click on View Details, I will see, again, created by John, the date, all of those things. Whoops. But because this is shared, perhaps I want to add this to my drive. Very simple as a right-click, add to drive. Okay, easy enough. In this case, I want to move this particular one, it says course design. I'm going to move this into a folder. I'm going to move this into our shared folder for Office of Instructional Design. Which, there we go, there's my drop down. So when I right click, move to, my options pop up here. I've got Office of Instructional Design, and I can move it where it needs to go. The drag and drop I was talking about earlier, if I already have folders populated here that I know I want to be in, again, Office of Instructional Design, I click, drag, and because I am sharing this now, it's going from my drive, I'm the only one that can view and can see, to now sharing with Peter. I click OK. Notice it's left my files in my drive, and it is now housed right here in our Office of Instructional Design. So a tip that might be helpful if you just have a bunch of files hanging out in your drive and you need them organized in folders, a tip that might be helpful is create those folders first and then go ahead and do your drag and drop into the particular folders. You don't need to do this one at a time. If you know that there are 5 that need to go into a particular one, I'm going to make this up and say, ooh, my beautiful picture. As long as I'm holding the control button on the keyboard, click the picture, click this one, and we'll even say, click this, let go of the control button. I can drag all 3 into that folder. And you'll notice it even gives me the count in the upper corner there, the number 3, in case I thought I had grabbed 4, as an example. By releasing, as long as I'm not hovering over the folder, by releasing, it'll just put them right back where they were. Of course, if I release over it, then they'll drop them all in there. So that's definitely, let's see, oh, I want to demonstrate file location. File location comes in handy when you're looking at your quick access, for example, or potentially shared things. Maybe I don't remember where this G drive sharing is being stored, and I have other things I need to store in that same folder. Right click, show file location, and it's literally going to take me, you notice the breadcrumb trail at the top, my drive, Office of Instructional Design, faculty training presentations. It literally took me to the location where it is. It didn't just say it lives in this folder. It took me right to it, and of course I can find that presentation in this whole list of things now, which is where that becomes very helpful. Let's skip that for right now. Let's see. Peter, can you think of anything else at the moment we can demo with basic drive stuff?
I'm not sure how you can demo this, but the one thing that I'll say about Drive, particularly organizing your files, is that if Eric and I both have our collaborators on a document, where he stores it in his drive is not necessarily where it's stored in my drive. If it's a shared folder, for example, the Office of Instructional Design folder, because we're both shared on that folder, the things we do in that folder will reflect on the other person's drive as well. But if it's just a document that's shared with you and you put it in a folder, that doesn't mean that you're moving it in the folder with other people that have shared that document as well. So if, you might ask somebody who you're collaborating with, like, oh, where is that found? It might be found somewhere differently in their drive than it is on yours. That's just something to keep in mind.
This question actually came up this morning. What about sharing? What if something is already in my shared drive, like our fishing awareness committee? And here it is. Now, right now, it's already been shared with me, but let's say it's in your shared drive. You want to make it part of your drive. Okay. This is something else. It doesn't have to stay in the shared drive because you are working collaboratively. As Peter mentioned, if you move it, you're not really moving it for everybody else. You're moving it within your Google domain, within your drive.
I have a question from one of the lab participants. What are the advantages or differences in storing or sorting files using workspaces versus folders?
Really, for me, it's more so about organization. It's more so about prioritizing. You certainly could have a folder and call it Spring 20, like we see here with this workspace, and have everything in there that is only Spring 20, and you know that that's...
There's no, like, with the workspace, there's only 25 items. The folders, you can put as many things as you want.
Correct. The workspace is, Google's version with this is really the idea of, this is your collaborative workstation where everybody now, especially if it's been shared, everybody now has access to the same exact files and only those files that are in that workspace by sharing that workspace. Or I'm using this workspace personally only for me. I haven't shared it with anybody. Some of the files inside, like the G Drive storage presentation, have been shared with Peter, and they'll be shared with participants today. But in that workspace, I can quickly, it's all about quick access. It's about quick identification of what is there and working only within those things within that workspace project. So again, when we get to Spring of 20, I will have only our Spring of 20 schedule in there, only our Spring of 20 workshops in there. And what's also nice is these things are all coming from different folders. So you're not limited in your workspace that they all have to come from the same folder. My workspace, I can tell you right now, this is from our Office of Instructional Design, but a different subfolder from the presentations. This is from our QM subfolder in our Office workspace. They're from different folders, but now organized almost in a how do I want to word it? I want to say different again. In another folder without taking them out of their current locations. That's where I find this very useful. So to try to transfer this idea to maybe to a class setting, if the students are using workspaces because you've got them organized as groups, this could be very useful for them. They can share that workspace with you. You can track changes. You can see whatever it is you need to see to evaluate their progress. So I did want to just demo this real quick. Let's see if I have. This was shared with everybody on the fishing committee, and currently it is in my shared drive. But if I want this in my drive, all I need to do is right-click, move to, click on my drive. Now I already have it in my drive, which is why this option is not there. But normally the option of move to my drive would illuminate. Notice the warning says item is already in this folder. Okay, I've already moved it to my drive at one point. It will actually sort of live in both spots. It'll still live in shared because somebody else was the originator, somebody else shared it with me. But again, about access and organization and how you have things set up, I'll also see it in my drive. Anybody that makes any changes to any of the documents in this folder, even though I've told it to let me access it in my drive, I will still see those real-time updates, those real-time changes. It's not creating a copy that only I own. It's just saying you are going to be housed in 2 spots. Everything in there is housed in 2 spots. So I'm going to skip to our preview of sharing some content. And this sort of leads into tomorrow in the idea of sharing. We're going to talk a lot about share settings and owner settings, especially via email, from your drive, and so on and so forth. Our workshop tomorrow is from 10 to 11, like today, and I need to change the timing on that. Should say 2 to 3. So typo, I will fix, or Peter can fix right now since we have it shared, and it'll get updated. But this actually is something on Damon's How Do I? So just a quick 1-minute video. I'm going to take a moment to show you. And this is a nice little preview on, with your owner settings, how you can make sure your items stay secure. Sure. Yeah, there we go. And Peter updated it for me. And do we not have sound?
When you click share, stop sharing your screen for a second. Click share again, and this time click the dialog box. Options are not available for multiple people to share at the same time. There should be a dialog box at the bottom that says share computer audio. Who's not going to play the computer audio?
Ah, what a shame.
We still have to come tomorrow.
Well, I'll jump ahead in the video and maybe? No. This is a little fuzzy, but you'll notice, and we'll definitely get into this more tomorrow. You notice when you go to share items, you've got a whole bunch of options on how you want to control who has access, what kind of access that they have, etc. So with the link sharing, most likely your default is that anybody you share it with, especially if you type in an email address, it's just you and those specific people. But your other options expand to anyone at damon.edu, anyone at Damon anyone at Damon with the link, only if they actually have the link. They can't just find it randomly. Or anyone at Damon. Now in this case, anyone with a damon.edu account can find it. Anyone with the link, regardless of what their account is, they have a personal Yahoo account, they could still access this. Or, of course, make it available on the web searchable for anybody. So those are some examples. I'm going to get out of that, come back to my drive to preview. This is what we were just looking at. Hopefully that's a little clearer. What also comes with this, when we're taking a look at your owner settings here, you can prevent editors. If you are collaborating with someone on a document, you can prevent them from adding new people. So ultimately, you are still the owner. You are the one that ultimately has control over whom and how things can be shared. But by simply clicking that button, you can now really control it. Your editors are purely editors. Same thing with disabling options to download, print, and copy. Now, depending on how you're using your documents and your slides, you may not want to click that button. If you have students that need the options to be able to download this and actually turn it into a file for whatever reason.
That would be helpful. Sometimes our faculty have these videos, they want the students to be able to see on Drive, but they don't want them to leave. So if they click that disable, they could only watch it.
Correct.
And they couldn't share it with anybody, and it couldn't be out there. And
correct.
Because there were patient videos that they wanted for demos, so that is helpful.
Absolutely. And it would be the same thing when we click on where it says here, private only you can access. When I click, we'll say anyone at Damon. access. Anyone at damon.edu can view, can edit, or can comment. Well, if I'm using a video, I want to make sure that says can view as an example. So that pretty much wraps us up. I'm going to go now backwards, and I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind. There we go. And is this not going to work now because I'm sharing?
I'm guessing,
I did activate Pull Everywhere this morning.
is the plugin added to that particular machine?
Betcha that's what it is.
Yeah, I ran into that issue myself, that when I don't use my personal computer, or not my personal computer, but
Your laptop.
laptop, the plugins aren't operational. I'll let you guys go.
Okay, so we'll adapt, right? That's what.
We'll send it out via email.
Absolutely, we will send it out. But I'm just curious, just a quick oral conversation. How do you plan to apply any aspects from this in your workshop, or from this workshop, excuse me, with your own drive?
I have files that I use that were sent to me, and I'm constantly searching to try to get it. So I'm going to put those in my workspace.
Okay, so you're going to use the workspace?
Right.
That's awesome.
And then I can move them out when I'm done with it. I only use it for sure.
Okay, no, that's great.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do workspace and then I'm gonna try and get more organized. You're right. My drive is better. Every time the students say, well, I shared it with you on the drive, oh, no, we have to go on the drive. So,
Well, and that's where a search may be
Right.
your best friend as well. The student's name or their email address will help you locate it very quickly.
And knowing that moving it into a my own folder or workspace isn't going to alter it for anyone else. I know, it's pretty better.
Oh, yes, no, absolutely.
I think that they always put the lead something.
Right.
And that's also the terminology of when you remove something from your drive, it's not deleting it, it's removing it from your drive. So if you and I are shared on a document and you remove it from your drive, it's not deleting it from existence. So if I still have it in my drive, I'll still have access to that. I think they use that terminology very specifically. It's removing it from your drive, it's not deleting a document.
Right.
okay. As long as somebody else can have the answer to it, it's still there.
It still exists.
Okay, very helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't sign up for today or tomorrow, I'm really too busy. So, can you put me in for tomorrow at 10?
Absolutely.
Upstairs, up in 202?
I believe that's where tomorrow's is.
Okay. See, it was serendipity. I'm real big on it. I was looking over Dorothy's shoulder when she was eating her meal.
Well, thank you for coming.
We
And,
broadcast our emails and then record them via Zoom.